GM, and welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show where we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, as of late, the agentic economy, the AI agent market, how to make some, or in an ideal case, a lot of money on the internet. And today we have quite some interesting headlines loaded up for discussions, some headlines that I didn't expect to present like that. We have Ripple flipping both the Solana and the Tether market cap. Last time we had a flipping of this size, I think it was in 2017 when Ripple flipped Ethereum, but nobody really cared back then. Second one, we have massive green on the NFT side of things. NFT market cap is up to $8.8 billion. Most collections, most of the major collections being up 20 to 50% over the last 7 days. Definitely a bit of a discussion on there, whether we think that NFT season is back or not. And on the other hand, we have the majors pulling back. We have BTC, ETH, and Sol down between 2 and 5%. We have a bit of a sell-off, a bit more of a sell-off on both the meme side and the AI agent side. So definitely excited to get into that. Of course, we also do have the latest on price action in crypto, in NFTs. And for today's Bread Tech segment, a discussion on the UX of Ethereum and on whether we'll continue to see that approved function for longer, or if that will be a thing of the past. Definitely curious to hear from that. I do have both Brett and Semi with me in the co-host seat. We're ready to get this show started. But just before we do that, a quick reminder that nothing that we do say on this show is financial advice. This market is extremely risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Brett, welcome to Vienna. How have your first night? How has your first night in Vienna been?
Yeah. Okay. So new city, new Wi-Fi. How do I sound? We're coming through clear.
You sound good. Okay. I think there's a bit of a delay, but everything's fine.
Okay, we'll keep going into it then. Yeah, things are great. As you see, there's a little bit of a delay. I'm in Vienna. They have dog shit Wi-Fi, at least where I'm at. So I'm on a mobile plan. The city's pretty, and I'm happy to see you. So we're gonna try to make that happen here in the next few days.
Absolutely excited for that. Sammy, what about you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, it's good. I was pretty much locked in for most of it, diving out for various family commitments, but yeah, getting a bit of anxiety trying to trade the market whilst watching Wicked on Friday, and then also coming back, getting stuck in. But yeah, writing the analysis as well. So I've been doing that daily, and there's just so much changing on a day-to-day basis. What I'm excited to do is do the weekly analysis, which I'll be dropping tomorrow in my newsletter. Just to see the change. But yeah, it's just been a lot of stuff that's coming to market, and I don't think it's getting the coverage that it needs. So it'd be interesting to dig into that.
Yeah, two things on that. A, on the fear of missing out on your FOMO, you messaged me on Discord saying that you have a family thing to attend to, and in case you miss anything, you want me to call you on Discord, so you will so you will see it and you will have to read the message of what is going on. I absolutely loved that level of commitment. And B, you've been crushing it on the content on the AI agent side. I had to post out yesterday with Kaito on the KOL mindshare for the meme side of things, because Kaito still puts the AI agent into the meme category. Yesterday you were number 2 for the last 7 days in terms of overall reach. Only Bonk Guy being ahead of you. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's weird to be categorized under the memes category, though. It still feels a bit strange because I don't really know too much about kind of the speculation and thematics around that. So I'm more of a fundamentals kind of guy, so it just feels a bit strange. But yeah, it's weird to be up there.
Yeah, I think more than the category, it's pretty significant. And I think you put it. Oh, now I did refresh. You're number 1 now. You flipped Bonk Guy.
Live on the modern market.
Yeah, let me put that on screen real quick. There we go. 3.73% of total mindshare, and Uniguy is at 3.71. But you said that in one of our publish and profit segments, I think, and we'll get into the show immediately. Also want to go to Funky before we get started, though. You said in one of the publish and profit segments that basically your approach is you see something that's new, you try to research the content for yourself, you see that something's missing, and this is how you come up with the ideas. In this case, the report that you put together on the AI agent market caps versus the attention versus the smart mindshare, smart engagement that they get on the timeline. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I wrote an article on it because I think that, I mean, people are posting about mindshare, but I don't think that necessarily correlates to price, because a lot of the general mindshare is probably not going to have the capital deployed. So if you assume that smart people that have been tagged, whether it's for capital or kind of clout in the space, like if they're starting to engage and become interested in specific accounts or AI agents, then there's a higher likelihood that they'll deploy capital. So I started doing this analysis. There's obviously a few disparities, but I think they're kind of like mean reverting. It's kind of coming back to parity, and there is some level of correlation. It's not perfect, and there is definitely outliers. But yeah, it's just interesting to observe, and I wonder whether it will continue over time or whether it will kind of break away. But to your point around the stuff not being available, there's dashboards and things that people are producing, but they just don't really have the depth of analysis. Like a lot of the stuff, they don't know the context behind why stuff's moving. So I think adding those insights definitely helps people understand and form their own thesis or do additional research within specific AI agents, rather than just taking it verbatim as to what's like hitting these dashboards, because I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of actually what's going on behind the scenes. And I think I'd just like to add that kind of context.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you've been doing a fantastic job on that. We also have Overarch in the YouTube comments saying, yeah, Sammy, that DeFi AI agent thread was brilliant. It helped me apply for a DeFi role. Thank you for that. And Notorious People saying, we just want Sammy to tell us all the ones he thinks that are undervalued right now. Haha. Look, we have a lot to get into the show, but before we do that, Funky, you have your hand up. Welcome to the stage, my friend. What's on your mind on our discussion?
GM gang, I just wanted to say first and foremost, congrats to Sammy. He's been doing yeoman's work out there to get this information out there. I also wanted to ask Legendary if you actually did text him while he was trying to watch Wicked with his partner, just because I know that was kind of a point I was really laughing at last week. And clearly Sammy is all in with he wanted you to call him on Discord during a family event. So, but congrats, Sammy. This is amazing, and really happy for you.
I appreciate that. No, he didn't call me, but to be fair to him, there wasn't really too much that came to market that was worth it. So yeah, I appreciate the materiality call there.
I would definitely have called something going on.
To front run Sammy and then call him and say, oh yeah, dude, this thing's hit and you should go buy it real quick, and then just dump on Sammy's head.
Yeah, be like, oh, this looks very interesting. I might accumulate a small position while in reality I'm 5 figures in and wait for Sammy to be my exit liquidity. That would be an interesting trading strategy. But we're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is we're going to get started with the show. Getting into the price action first. Bitcoin over the last 24 hours down 2% over the last 7 days. And we do look at the 7-day numbers today as well because they're important for the general context, down 3%. It's a very, very similar picture for ETH, down 2.5% over the last 24 hours, still up 3% over the last 7 days. Solana down 5% and 10.7% respectively. And then there's the big one. Then there's Ripple. Ripple is up 20.7% over the last 24 hours and up a total of 56% over the last 7 days. Bonkai had this post out doing the math saying that over the last month, Ripple added more than $95 billion in market cap, which is utterly insane. And right now it has corrected down a bit, so it's not ahead of Tether anymore, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a very, very crazy number that I'm excited to get into. Before we do that, on the meme side of things, general red across the board for the majors. Doge down 4%, Shiba down 7%, Pepe down 5%, Bonk down 8%, Dog we've had down 4%, Floki down 7%, Bread, Popcat, Peanut, Mog down between 10 and 13, 14%. A very similar trend on the AI agent side of things. We talked a lot about the virtual agents on Base, with the virtuals coin down to $130 from $2, and also with a lot of the agents down anywhere between 20, 40, 50, 60%. So definitely a bit of a retracement that has been going on over the weekend. In terms of the main headlines, getting into the snapshot, which is pinned on top of which I'm sharing on screen as well. Just said it, we have Ripple flipping Solana with a massive increase in market cap. Definitely going to get into discussion of what Ripple is, because I'm pretty sure that not everyone knows and who's actually using that and what could be behind that movement in price. We have the CryptoPunk floor hitting 44 ETH as the general NFT market cap reaches 8.8 bill. Again, with most of the significant NFT collections seeing huge rises over the last 7 days. And as we just said, the majors pulling back a bit. In terms of some notable sales, I like that Bchek put that in there for me because he likes it. He knows I like the V1 punks. We have this CryptoPunk Ape, a V1, selling for 87 ETH that I'm sharing on screen, and two Cowboy Hat CryptoPunks selling for 68 ETH. Taking a quick look at the NFT majors, we have Bored Ape up 8% over the last 24 hours, up 90% over the last 7 days, up 90% over the last 7 days. I'm going to say that once more, sitting at a 23 ETH floor. We have Pudgies up 30% over the last 7 days, up 2% over the last 24 hours. We have Azuki's up 28% over the last 7 days at a 5.85 ETH floor, basically unchanged though over the last 24 hours. Milady's up 18% over the last 7 days, 7 ETH floor for them, 7.11 ETH floor to be precise. Doodles up 43% at a 2.8 ETH floor over the last 7 days. And some other legacy collections, or most of the other legacy collections, including Moonbirds are moving, including Cool Cats are moving, sharing the Cool Cats on screen. They are up 106% at a 0.5 ETH floor over the last 7 days. I think we started to see a bit of a similar price action on the ordinal side of things as well, with Puppets being up 7% over the last 24 hours, Node Monks being up 7%. So it seems that this momentum that we're seeing in NFTs right now is translating to the ordinal side of things as well. Before I get back into the snapshot, I know we do have a dedicated discussion on the NFT side of things, but I do want to pause here and see if you, Sammy or Brett, have any thoughts on that first NFT roundup.
Probably just on the Pudgy side, like we've spoken about that 10 to 20 ETH range and whether that's kind of like no man's land. So I'd be curious to see if this time Pudgies do kind of pump into that 20 plus range, especially with Abstract around the corner. So that's something that I'm kind of watching. And I'm curious, like with the Abstract devs, obviously they're going hard on AI at the moment. So I don't know if there's going to be some sort of integration into that chain. And then obviously using IP is the Pudgy IP is like some sort of like market leading flagship, similar to how like Luna does with virtuals, or like Eliza does with AI16Z.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think Pudgy's also had this post out about the prophecy, but definitely interesting to observe Saigar being active in the agent space. I think also talking to the AI XPT team and having a post on why he will support them going forward. So that's very, very interesting to observe. And I'm also wondering.
Same with Jared as well. Have you seen his post? Like he's posted something on Fraser, I think it was, which was like an AI agent that effectively gave 50 grand away to someone who managed to encourage or entice it to do so. And Elon Musk interacted with that. But Jared's like the developer relations for Abstract. So it's super interesting to see that unfold.
Yeah, we did see that. We did have the story on, but I didn't see the Abstract team also being active in the comments or engaging with that. But that's interesting. I'm curious to see what Abstract will have in connection with the agentic economy. However, going back to the Web3 roundup to bring you the rest of the news from around the space, we have Michael Saylor delivering a 3-minute presentation to the Microsoft board on why they should buy BTC. I listened to the first 2 sentences, quite frankly. That is the most significant thing, basically saying that Microsoft can't afford to miss the next technological wave. Bitcoin is the next technological wave. Second news, Hyperliquid pulling back, but still almost trading at a $9 billion FTV. It was basically insane to observe Hyperliquid coming out at around 3 bill and marching up all the way to 10 bill without a single dip there. And that pull down is not really, or that retracement is not significant given how much it had pumped over the last couple of days. Jesse Pollack stating that Base has no plans for a Base network token. To be precise on the quote, he posted, "There are no plans for Base network token. We are focused on building and want to solve real problems that let you build better. And I want your feedback on what we can be doing better." In terms of some other news from the space, we had the Bread meme coin on Base, the breaking $2 billion in market cap before it retraced. Touched on that at the start of the show. We also touched on the AI agents on virtuals going to double-digit retracements. And I think Tyler also covered that there's more than 1,000 agents released per day. That was the number over the weekend. They do have quite a high target for them to bond, which is very similar to how it works with meme coins on pump.fun. When there's a bonding and they then get the radium pool, in this case it bonds and then you can trade it on the Uniswap pool, and the tokens get burnt and then they appear listed on the virtual's main page. But I think over the weekend it was like 600-700K in terms of the market cap that it had to reach to even bond. So that was quite high. And that's it from the Web3 Roundup. Sammy, anything that you wanna touch on for the Roundup before we get into the Bread Tech segment?
Yeah, I think just on that 1,000 agents coming to market daily, I think just to highlight the bonding requirements that you've touched on, that you've mentioned. Yes, they're high, but I think that like there's no actual sentience, so it doesn't actually become an agent until it hits that bonding. So yes, there's 1,000 tokens coming to market, but essentially all they are just like meme coins on Base, similar to like Pump Fun. It's not until they hit that bonding that they become an agent, and then they get like an X account. So I think like the number of 1,000 in a day is probably a bit misleading. It's probably more realistically around about 50. So actually, I just don't think it's saturated. It will become saturated, but I just don't think it has hit that escape velocity that we're kind of sensing. So I think there's probably a lot more upside, and I think there will be a lot of attention that comes back into it. And as you know, like going through that pump fund for virtuals, like there's like a couple every few minutes or whatever, but it's nothing really significant. So I expect that volume to pick up. Like I think the pump fund after a month, it was launching 50,000 a day. So for there only to be 1,000 and then only 50 go to become an actual agent, that's still pretty low.
Yeah, I think that's very important context, because both of us spend a lot of time on the fund.virtual side. And if you have nothing else to do, you can basically keep up with every launch that comes out throughout the day. Especially a lot of them are very easy to tell that they won't go anywhere. And then you can take the time to look at those which you might deem to be a bit more interesting. And I also think that this distinction is very important, that they only get to be an autonomous agent once they actually manage to bond and once they actually appear on the main side. We're going to have a segment towards the end of the show where we talk a bit more about the majors pulling back, the memes pulling back, and I'm definitely curious to hear from you, Sammy, how you've been thinking about this retracement for the agents. But we'll do that in the dedicated segment. And what we'll do instead now is move forward with the show and get into Bread segment, into Bread Tech, to hear a bit about what's going on in terms of the Ethereum user experience and how that could be improved pretty soon, maybe. Bread, passing over to you.
All right. So yeah, let's get into the breakdown. So this one in particular is going to be about, as Legendary alluded to, approvals and addressing the EVM UX. And what I mean by approvals is, if you guys have ever interacted on Ethereum or most layer 2s like Base, you'll recognize that you have to click a button to approve a token and then click a button to swap a transaction. That has had a lot of consternation in the last week or so, people talking about or ideating on why has Solana outperformed Ethereum. And some people were saying that maybe it's as simple as just the UX had an extra click to it. Obviously, it's a little bit of hyperbole, but it is an important factor because one click does matter and user experience does matter, as we're seeing with Hyperliquid, as we're seeing with Solana. It just feels better to do some of that stuff, and that does result in users aggregating to a particular environment. So that's the context. That's what we're talking about, that specific thing, approvals. And we're talking about it because right now there is a proposal that is approved to go into the next upgrade for Ethereum called EIP 7702, which will ultimately make your user account, so the thing that you use to sign your transactions, called an EOA for end-owned account. Or end user owned account. And that will be converted to, or not converted to, it will be able to be simultaneously an EOA and a smart account. And that may sound familiar because in the past, you may have heard about EIP 4337, which was smart accounts, smart wallets, whatever. That's something that everyone got excited about, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago at this point. And everyone thought this was going to be the change. This was going to be the thing that got everyone excited. And that ultimately did not get adopted very heavily. And people are more hopeful that this one will, because the old one, 4337, smart accounts, account abstraction, all that stuff, that required a conversion to a smart account, to a smart contract, as opposed to keeping the thing that you own. And I said EOA is for end user, it's for externally owned accounts. Sorry. Anyways, so we're just going to break this down into pros and cons of what this thing is. This thing being, again, EIP 7702, and what it can do, and when it's going to come, and then maybe one of the things that we need to be aware of because it might be bad. So quickly going down the pros, things it might improve, right? Generally, just the UX. So once you have this thing enabled, because it is opt-in, you will be able to bundle transactions, which means you no longer have to do approve and then swap in two separate things. You could do a single click that allows for both. You could do gas sponsoring. So if like my application wants to sponsor all the gas that's paid for on my application, I can do that. And generally you get security improvements like session keys. And a session key in this context is basically just you give permissions to an app to use your to have access to things for a certain window of time, right? So if you're playing a game, it's a good example. If you're playing a game, you hop in, you have, for your session of gaming, they have access to get paid out of your account, whatever, do whatever. And then once that session is closed, it no longer has those abilities. So it's kind of like whenever you do a trade, you approve a certain amount like that, but it's time-based. Another pro, this is done at the chain level as opposed to done at the standards level. So 4337 was a smart contract like standard that was put out, like ERC20s. And that's better because when it's at the chain level, it doesn't require deploying contracts, modifying contracts, doing all that stuff. And it makes it harder for adoption. And a lot of major wallet providers like MetaMask, Turnkey, a lot of these things are already opting into. Privy is a good embedded wallet example, have opted into saying that they're going to support this whenever it comes live. So adoption looks like it's going to be picked up early. Now, some of the cons that come with this thing is you're going to, one, it does require end user opt-in. So like even though these wallets adopt it, does not mean that it's automatically going to take effect to your accounts, which means because it requires people to opt in, it's kind of a chicken and the egg problem where a lot of these apps and or wallets may not support it because not a lot of people have opted in. We need apps ultimately to implement it for a better UX, which will then make users opt in, which will make it go well. And then it does not remove the need for private keys or seed phrases because it doesn't convert your actual EOA to a smart account. And smart accounts, everyone's really excited about it because it was going to be used for like biometrics, going to be used for like everything you use to sign into your phone effectively. It does not remove that because it does not convert your stuff. It's just it turns it into some of the functions simultaneously. So you're still going to need that stuff. And that, you know, as you guys know, is not awesome for end user experience. It kind of creates a lot of overhead. Now that does go away with embedded wallets, but that's a separate conversation. And because it does add complexity to some stuff, there is a little bit of smart contract risk associated with converting into or opting into becoming a 7702 wallet. So in general, that's the overall picture of pros and cons. And then like just high level, going back over everything, like comes with end user experience improvements, which maybe keep it on, get it on par with like Solana's, the Sui's, the whatever, some of the modern chains. But unfortunately, it's going to require some level of participation from apps, devs, and users in order to get rolling, which means when this thing goes in on Ethereum mainnet, which is again Q1 of next year, it's like that's the starting point for all that stuff. So it's going to take a while. But this is also a reason for why Ethereum has chosen this the modular roadmap, right? All these L2s, because L2s can move much faster than mainnet, which means you have things like Ithaca, which is something created by Paradigm that it throws in all of these EIPs already. It's already live with it. Base can get this in much quicker than Ethereum can. Mega ETH, we're planning on implementing this stuff. So the reason Ethereum went with the modular roadmap is so all these L2s can iterate and improve or implement this stuff much faster than mainnet. So then end user experience, if they are meant to happen there, can be faster. But yeah, hopefully it improves the UX and generally just improves on-chain experiences for everyone.
Thank you so much. That is a fantastic breakdown. I think the UX is extremely important. You said at the start, it's just one click less, but I think altogether it makes a massive difference. I do have a couple of follow-up questions, but I want to talk a bit more about the UX experience first, because you're right. Like if I am on Base and I want to buy by a virtuals agent. I have to give an approval for the virtuals they want to spend. I need to go through another click to then actually have the transaction on. Then I need
Do you
a
ever
third
lose
click.
track of what you're actually clicking?
Yes, because sometimes I
there's
rush.
so many stages.
Yeah, and sometimes I rush to click through the three things that I have to click to. Have slippage set high because I want to ape something fast, and it's still. I mean, I know I can pre-approve my entire virtuals balance, but I don't want to do that. So it is a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's also lately been an experience now that I've been dabbling more into the liquidity pool providing on Sol, that sometimes if I want to remove liquidity from Radium or Meteora, I have to, and I have the slippage increased, I have to try like 5 or 6 times and wait until this transaction actually works. So both UX experiences are not perfect, but Solana is definitely ahead compared to ETH. However, I do have one follow-up question first on the security side of things, because you mentioned that this will help, or this can help improve security. You mentioned that there will be sessions like a game where I play that for 1 hour and then this approval, everything is gone, because this used to be a major problem on the ETH hacks. So many Bored Apes and other NFTs that ultimately got stolen were stolen because people were signing malicious approvals, thinking they are listing something on OpenSea or accepting an offer, where in fact they were giving someone else an approval to take that out of their wallet or to sell it into a 0.01 ETH offer on OpenSea. Will this basically, can this this EIP also help with that and improving that security user experience aspect of it?
Yes, and it's primarily because of the ability to bundle. Now it's going to be on application developers to build out the transaction appropriately. But like now, think of a world where you approve something, you do something, and then in that same bundle, you have a remove approval at the very end, right? So you no longer have to come in after the fact, a week, a month, or whatever later, and say, now remove my approval from this thing. You can do the thing at max slippage, whatever, once it's executed, because it's atomic, goes through the first thing, it approves, goes to the second thing, does the swap, goes to the third thing, removes approval, all simultaneously, right? So then now you close the door behind you whenever you do the actual transaction, instead of having to remember to go back in and do the thing.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And it's definitely one of the APs, one of the upgrades to be excited for. We have 30 minutes left of the show, halfway in, so I think it's time to get into the main headlines. The first one that we want to touch on is this insane rally that Ripple has been on. Brett, do you want to take that internet-wise, or do you want me to cover it?
Yeah, so yeah, I think I can dive into this thing. And this one's two-parter for me. One is like just talking about like what we're seeing here, and then just my general opinion on it. So one, yes, XRP, like just covering the headlines. It's being talked about like how like widely it's used, and like recently this all started from the price action itself. Price action has shot over 100 billion. It's flipped Sol, it's flipped Tether, so it just appreciated very quickly. I think Bonk guy on Sol mentioned it went up 100 billion in the last month, which is ridiculous, as we all know, right? Now, Yano was calling out that even with that move, it still is relatively low volume compared to the previous times that it was hitting all-time high, which would signify that maybe it's less retail based and more institutional based. So that's something to be aware of. I looked into it. Like one of the articles you linked to me was that there's 19 banks that had claimed to be using this right now. And I want to do some more research on this and actually go and look at some on-chain metrics for Ripple, because coming from a previous enterprise heavy blockchain, this one, I cut my teeth in VeChain, right? That was one from 2017, another Dino coin. It was huge on partnerships and all this shit. I was gaslit for literal years thinking like, oh, they say partnerships, therefore it's used. And I would look at the chain and I'd go, this thing is not fucking used. There's no one touching this thing, even though there's all these partnerships. And then I would just be like, that there has to be something going on that I'm not aware of, because I trust these people are not lying, that this stuff is being used in the background. And after spending a couple of years there, it's like, no, it's fucking, no one was using it. And I'm like, there's no hidden transactions. There's no like private testnet or something that it's just like, it's not fucking used. So hearing these partnerships with all these banks, I want to go and look at the actual ledger and see that there are actual transactions. There is volume, there is increased usage, there is whatever, because you can't hide some of that stuff. So high level is like, yes, it's moving, it's exciting. There's announced partnerships. It's been ridiculous. Everyone's chasing meme coins now. I saw, I think even you, Legendary, you put out a little guide on like how to get people over there and do some stuff. So the desire is there, but I want to know if there's actual substance behind it by looking at on-chain and seeing what the activity is.
Yeah, very much agree with you on that. I think for some of those partnerships, they do take a lot of time. One of the examples is the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, the Australian Central Bank, where there was a news article from, I think, November 2022 saying that they will start migrating cross-border payments to the ISO 20022 standard this month and executing those payments via Ripple, via their blockchain. But basically, the plan to complete the transition of all those payments is to be finalized by November 2025. So this was a 3-year plan. I think that, as you perfectly said, a lot of these partnerships are multi-year, and if you do them, it takes time to actually implement them. But it's, for me, going to be honest, it's hard to tell without the on-chain activity how much of that, or it's impossible to tell how much of that without the on-chain activity is happening or it's not happening. And then you also have to factor in that with those banking partnerships, there's going to be a lot of private blockchains used by banks, which for obvious reasons won't be accessible to the public. So I do have a bit of a hard time to understand why we've seen such a massive run on that. Obviously seen the hypothesis, we have the tourist capital, everyone's bidding their bags from last month. But I feel that this increase is too significant. I don't think that retail tourist capital has been adding $100 billion almost in market cap over a month. So I do think that there has to be more to this and more institutional interest coming in as well. And I do know that Matthew, who joined us on the stage, has some insights on that or some thesis on that to share as well. So going straight to you, Matthew, welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm glad you're bringing this up. And definitely want to agree that these partnerships with numerous, over a dozen banks, may have small on-chain activity. And even if you can see that activity, there might be stuff, as Legendary mentioned, that's on a private channel. So that's also something to be cognizant of. But let's just remember that this has been under an SEC scrutiny for the past 4 or 5 years. And right now, as we've progressed with this new administration in the United States, and coupling with the rumors going around that Trump might eliminate capital gains on US-based tokens, now you've got a huge tailwind for any assets based in the United States focused on real use cases and building partnerships in this ecosystem to have price appreciation. And if institutions are going to have to be part of it, you have to sort of activate a full network. And so that means you've got to have these little proofs of concept all over the place at the Bank of Qatar, Bank of America, like in Australia, like you mentioned, so that these organizations can now start talking to each other, because it's a network effect token. It requires a lot of different institutions to be able to use it at the same time for it to have its desired effect. So I would say when you go look at those partnerships, yes, they might be small when you see them, but they are there, and they're actual partnerships. But it's a growing ecosystem and use case.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Brett, I think you also wanted to come in on that.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say what Matthew had said on top of what you just mentioned. Internally, talking about the ETF rumors that were being spread for Ripple. Solana rode that wave a little bit too. We got to wait for that to play out. But also, again, I'm not a Ripple enthusiast, so I had to do some quick research today to really understand some of the high level stuff and just general bull case for why retail might be interested in something that's used for banking on the back end. Was that all the XRP is pre-mined, so all 100 billion of it, and it takes the actual tokens destroyed with each token is actually destroyed with each transaction. So there's no mining or staking stuff, and it is deflationary, quote unquote, because things are already in supply or in circulation, and it's going away with usage. So if you are to believe that usage is going to go up the chain, that might be why retail will get involved. But generally, just one thing is it's so narrative follows price, right? The price is going crazy, so we're all searching for things to figure out why the price is surging.
Right, you're starting to cut out a bit, but I think we got most of the point that you were trying to make. Sammy, you shared a post in our private chat. Definitely also want to check in with you for your thoughts on that, and also see how are you positioned on that? Do you hold XRP? Personally, I bought a bag in November 2018. I'm still holding that 6 years later. Never did anything with it other than on the weekend, actually putting it on a wallet that I can use to buy a bit of meme coins and play around with that. But other than that, I haven't. I have just been holding the asset. What about yourself? What are your thoughts on this development?
I have actually I've got a wallet that had some in from last cycle that I haven't touched, but it's a very small amount. And I think like there's been some rumors of like ETFs or ETFs that Brett touched on. So Wisdom Tree has filed for one. I think 21 Shares, so like a subsidiary of 21 Co, also filed for one about a month ago. I don't know if that's live. I saw a post about it having 100 million of assets under management, but I don't know if that's true or not. So I think there's that demand, but I'm curious, like what if there's a cap on the total supply and it's going to be destroyed upon usage? Like I just don't know see how that's sustainable, because eventually if this becomes like a global payment layer for all these banks internationally, like surely I'd be a little bit concerned that the supply of that particular token is just going to dissipate over the long term. So surely there has to be a future fork or something that changes that. Whereas I could understand if it became deflationary, but the supply wasn't capped, that to me kind of suits a more sustainable payment processor approach. But if there is a cap and it's all pre-mined, that confuses me a little bit. And I get why like the demand would then go up through the roof, because if the supply is capped and ETFs start accumulating and institutional capital comes in, I get that in the short term. But I would just be a little bit concerned about the long-term sustainability of it all.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting aspect as well. Brett also wanted to point out narrative following price, and that people now are looking into XRP from the ZK community, talking about building out ZK layer 2s and how it's actually decent for that. I think for me, the main takeaway is that there's obviously a massive movement going on. We had the entire timeline cheer for Solana for more than a year, and Solana has, very well recovered and has hit an all-time high. We also have this quiet move, adding 100 billions in terms of market cap, quiet from the perspective of basically our bubble on Crypto X, because there's been YouTubers who have been covering that all along, but they're not within my bubble. And that is like actually meme coin trading going on there. You have a meme coin like Army who did run up to 90 mil. I think it's somewhere between 60 and 70 mil. I asked like about other things that are going on there as well. There's someone building, I think, an L2. There's games being built on there. So there's a fair amount of activity, I would say, going on there as well. And I do think that it's interesting to explore that. And I do think that, similar to Brett, I want to do a bit more research and kind of understand what's going on the partnership side, what's going on the on-chain activity, not the institutional one necessarily, but like what are people actually building on this chain as well? Because for me, it's too big of a move to just ignore that yet, and to just ignore that. And I think these also put it, this is the time to think about, do you want to like put 10 to 25K into that trade meme coins? This was his point. And that either goes to zero, there's actually something happening, there's some more momentum coming in. So I do want to take the time, and I probably think that's something that we're going to come back on the show as well. However, for now, Sammy, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think it's important to stay curious, but I don't know, like it does feel, I don't know, it's hitting the all-time highs. It's a ridiculous amount of inflows of TVL or increasing market cap. I just don't know. It just doesn't feel sustainable. Like it feels like there's going to be a pullback. And I think to go in now, I think you're going to be exit liquidity. And I could be proven wrong, but I mean, I've decided to focus my attention on AI agents because I think there's an interesting intersect there. But I think an old chain that is focused on payment rails, I just don't see how trading meme coins on there is going to be sustainable as well. It just feels like it's a bit of a, not a moat as in like a headwind for them sustaining that like market edge or whatever. But I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me. So I just don't think I'm going to spend too much time there.
That's a fair point. I mean, in terms of price, actually, I don't think we're at all time high. I think we went as high as $3 something in 2018. But for me, the thing is, I have the bag already. I didn't need to buy extra Ripple, and basically putting a bit on that on an extra wallet where I can experiment makes sense, because I don't want to end up in a position where like, oh, there's something I want to ape like right now, and then needing to figure out how do I get money there? How do I transact on there? What sites do I use to trade? I have no idea about that. So I'd rather like take the learning now, and in case something comes across my table where I'm interested to ape in fast, then I'm gonna do that. But for now, let's move on to the second headline. You said it at the top of the show that NFTs are having a massive week, had a massive week. Sharing this once more to kind of see that most of the major collections over the last week again are up anywhere between 20 to 100%. Cool Cats, we said that up 105%. The Bored Apes running similarly high. Milady's being above 7 ETH, etc., etc. And there's a lot of people on the timeline cheering for that movement. I think Whale Swoosh yesterday announced together with the Unfungible team that they are going to make this daily live streaming NFT giveaways and trying to bring the momentum, the love for Christmas season back to NFTs as well. I took a bit of the other side on that. Maybe that's bear market PTSD speaking from my side. And obviously, it's a bit of a spicy take. I said NFT season is not back because they pumped 25 to 30% in a week. Obviously, underestimated those numbers. Algorand is up 80% over the last 7 days. Nobody claims it's algo season. Everything is catching a bit. And so are JPEGs. A fair point in the comments that has been made by many people. And it's also one that I agree with is, look, there's momentum coming in now. If that sustains, it's definitely an NFT season. I personally think it's a bit too early to tell that. And I know that I'm talking against my own backs because I still hold a shit ton of NFTs from last cycle. So I would be the first one to be super happy about them coming back. But I just don't trust this movement yet because in comparison to Ripple, where we added $100 billion in market cap, it doesn't take a lot of money to move NFTs still. I think we saw that last week when we talked about this wallet who loaded up 6 mil and started bidding apes and moved them by a couple of ETH. By themselves. So this is the one thing that makes me a bit skeptical is that they've run quite a lot over a week. They've been running quite a lot over a week, and it doesn't take a lot of money to move that. But Sammy, very curious to hear your perspective on that. Do I have too much PTSD from the last cycle, basically?
No, I think people have made a bit of money. Like we've had a bit of a bull run on the fungible side. So an ETH technically kind of bottomed with the ratios with Sol and Bitcoin and kind of reverted. That's kind of pushing back up to 3.5, 4K now. And I think people do have that, like the feeling, okay, well, maybe I need to take a leverage bet on ETH. Maybe I'll hit those NFTs because they'll probably do multiples. And it has happened, but I don't necessarily think we've seen the full blow off top of the fungible side of the tokens. And I think when we do see that, yes, I agree that people are going to start flexing, but I just don't think we've seen that digital flex yet. I think there will be a pullback in NFTs. I think there'll be a chase in another chase in the AI agent sector specifically. I think there's probably going to be another pump for like the big caps, like majors. But I think once people start to think, okay, well, shit, it's coming near the top, they'll probably start taking profits then. And then those that have made a lot of money will probably start looking for some of these NFTs. And I think there will be a lot more capital in the market. The prices of these NFTs will probably be a lot higher. But I do think there's going to be a pullback in the meantime. And I think there's probably going to be a lot more attention on the more nascent crypto AI intersect. And that's why I'm spending my attention there. But
yeah, that's a fair point. Brett, also want to check in with you. What's your thought on this NFT reversal, NFT momentum that we're seeing right now?
Bold of you to try to come to me with my connection the way that it is. Honestly, it's not surprising, I think, ultimately, because like I think I saw these tweets, which is like, well, you're telling me that people who have just made a shit ton of money doing meme coinings and everything else want a scarce like mark of like clout or whatever within their industry. So like, I don't know, man. Everyone's coming in a lot of money on meme coins. I still think there is some level of emotional connection to NFTs. And because we're all crypto native, we want the crypto native thing to show off to our crypto native friends that we have the thing, even if it is kind of memey and maybe not like as worth as much as we thought it was back in the day. So ultimately, it doesn't surprise me, frankly.
Yeah, that's a good point. The one thing that I've been thinking about as well is my own PFP. It's not the only pudgy that I have, so that makes it a bit easier. But when I, in the last cycle, had my Bored Ape as a PFP. I was holding 2 Bored Apes that I flipped for a very decent amount of money back then. I got so emotionally attached to my ape that then I was basically, I bought it at 4, sold at 60, and I was FOMOing in and thinking to buy my same ape back at 100. I was like, I don't want to grow the same emotional attachment to the current PFP, to the Pudgy right now, but I already realized that I do. I'm like, if I look at this and I look at the little amount of Pudgies that I have, I probably could take profits and cash in on one, but then at one point, if this trend goes up and I keep cashing out, at one point my PFP would be the one that I have to sell, and I kind of don't want to do that. So, as critical as I might have been in that take, I still have this emotional attachment to the PFP, which is quite weird because it's the same feeling as last cycle.
Well, maybe that emotional attachment will have value because there's the whole provenance thing around, like is it the Starry Night Fund or the 3AC, where the Goose got acquired by that, and it's got history from an art perspective. So I do think there will be certain NFTs within probably the tier 1 NFT PFP collections that have that provenance. So you look at, was it Seed Phrase took out that $2.5 million loan against his CryptoPunk recently on Gondi. So I think there will be provenance for certain PFPs. And even you mentioned, you saw the Azuki for Hunter, the main Azuki just at the floor, but it does have that tie to that personality at some point, and there will be people that kind of resonate with that. So I do wonder whether that emotional attachment does have provenance and does have some sort of value at some point.
Yeah, it definitely does for some of the larger creators, more significant people in the space, I would argue. Also, it would be kind of fun to buy Hunters. I don't think it's on the floor anymore. To buy Hunters Azuki, turn it into an AI agent, and post in a similar style to him. One last thing I wanted to check in on before we move on to the last headline is to see if this NFT momentum is also somehow reflecting in the pre-token price action for Magic Eden, which seems to be the case. The Magic Eden token on Whales market, on the pre-TGE market, that is up 15%, trading at $3.64 US. Volume is also up. Again, as always, with that, the caveat is volume is rather low, but still for Magic Eden, we're talking about $1.8 million in volume and 100K of that in the last 24 hours, which is an increase of 500%. So there's definitely a bit of a connection there. And I think when's the airdrop? Yeah, December 10th. So Checker is going to be on December 4th in 2 days. Airdrop is going to be in 10 days. I do think that this momentum that we're seeing in NFTs right now might be very helpful for a Magic Eden airdrop. And I'm also curious to see what that means going forward for OpenSea. And we'll definitely keep you all covered on that. But for now, we have to move on to the last headline to talk a bit about more of the general price action. So we said it at the top of the show, just to share it once more on screen, that the majors pulled back a bit over the last 24 hours. Bitcoin, ETH down 2.5%. Solana down a bit more, 6% over the last 24 hours, 11% almost over the last 7 days. See that major pull back on the meme side. Seen that major pull back on the AI side as well. And my thinking is, or my question more is, what are we doing in this situation? Personally, what I've been seeing is this pattern over the last couple of weeks that we had Monday sell-offs. So I don't think anything of substance or anything to be afraid of or worried of is going on, because I did see quite a bit of panic on the timeline, also in terms of the Solana price being down 10%. But on the other hand, we had like an incredible run-up. Obviously, this is not financial advice, but my personal portfolio strategy and allocation is not changing for the major side of thing. I'm curious to hear, Sammy, how you have been thinking about the AI agent side of things, because you obviously have the report coming out daily. We had this massive retracements. Are you trading this dip? Are you a buyer here? What are your thoughts on the AI agent economy right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly nascent. So you don't have a lot of data going back a long way to actually work out, okay, whether these things are fairly priced. But based off like what I'm seeing and like some of the developments in the space, I find it super interesting. A lot of what we've got to go off in terms of like price action is the recent, like what it's kind of gone to. I mean, there's been no tier one exchange listings for a lot of this stuff. Like there's been speculation on the timeline around that. I do think though that there's going to be a lot that comes to market that, I mean, these developers have been working on this stuff for years. Like Saigar mentioned that the conversation he had with the AI XBT developer was something that he's been doing it for 18 months or 2 years, and he's built this analysis tool. But these AI agents with a token have effectively enabled him to showcase that. So I think there are a lot of agents that are going to be coming to market and probably haven't yet, that do have products that are really interesting. Like there's been podcasts that have come to market. There's been like other analytics terminals. And I know Wintermute bought up NFT XBT, but arguably I think that the AI XBT analytics is better for NFTs at the moment. I don't know whether that becomes like a segmental thing where you have analysts, that AI agents that kind of go into particular niches. So in terms of like what I'm looking for is something that actually makes me think, okay, well, this is really impressive for that particular subsegment of this AI crypto intersect. And I'd be happy to then deploy into those particular AI agents, seeing them as kind of like the app layer on the kind of layer one, which I see as like virtuals or like AI 16Z, so the ELIZA framework, or just observing, like, for instance, AI 16Z specifically, like the market cap of that has increased significantly. It hasn't necessarily gained the same level of smart engagement, but then you see developers like Saigar, who's now top 10 in terms of contributions within that particular framework on their GitHub. So there's development that's happening, and I am wondering whether what we're seeing on the timeline and then what's actually being built behind the scenes is actually matching up at the moment, which is what I'm trying to dig into more, because I think if you start talking to the actual developers and seeing what's in the pipeline, you can then kind of front run before it launches to then capitalize on like an earlier entry. Yes, I think there's a lot of vaporware here, and there's a lot of sectors within this particular niche that are kind of becoming quite competitive. Like you've seen Dolos, the bully, like his price action's gone down quite significantly recently. But you've got things like the RM 9000 and AJO who are like competing in that space, and they're actually pretty competitive in terms of like responses and interactions with not only humans but agents as well. So I think that mind share is the attention is being split within these subsectors, but within the analysis sector, I think AI XBT is just excelling. That's not to say that in the future there's not going to be something else that comes out that competes, but I think just identifying those market leaders within those subsegments is important, because I think those are effectively going to get a lot of the mind share, potentially smart mind share. I mean, I think capital kind of follows that smart mind share. So yeah, I think there's a lot more upside. I think the pullback is healthy. I don't know how far we go back in terms of a pullback, but I do think that we kind of consolidate and then take a next leg up. And I think 2025 generally is going to be pretty impressive. And I've got a few development teams saying that a lot of their products are coming to market in Q1 2025. So they're now kind of lining up like distribution. So talking to KOLs, talking to analysts to kind of bring their message to market. So I think there's going to be an explosion of activity next year, maybe early next year. So yeah, between what happens between now and then, I'm not sure. There will be a lot of interesting stuff. I think it's just important to stay curious and pay attention. So I write these daily analyst kind of things. I try to make them as unbiased as possible. I mean, there's stuff in there that, like, for instance, Poly Trader today, I haven't mentioned that before, but I've been in that for like a week or so. I find that very interesting. I find the podcast stuff very interesting, but I haven't mentioned it because it hasn't hit the smart engagement metrics that warrant me mentioning it. So I think like I'm trying to remain unbiased as possible, just comment on the market on a daily basis. And then hopefully that's of use to some people. But yeah, I think there's going to be another leg up. I think there's been a healthy correction now. But yeah, beyond that, like it's anyone's guess as to where this goes. It's a nascent space.
I think that's a fantastic summary. That's very, very good insights. One of the points that did stand out to me is you mentioned Saigar talking to the AI XBT dev. We talked about Project 89, which is not on the virtual side of things, which is on Solana, where the dev is like, look, I've been working on this for 15 years, and now we adopted the token that was launched around that. It seems to be this interesting pattern that, yes, there's a lot of vaporware. Absolutely agree with that. There's, again, companies hiring copywriters to pretend to be an AI agent on the timeline, and then that blows up in their faces as well. But there's also a lot of people who actually have been working on pretty cool stuff for years, and now seem to try to find product market fit with crypto, and sometimes also struggle with the token layer a bit because they have no idea about the Web3 culture, about the how we think about tokens, and we've seen that play out a couple of times with different projects. But it is appeared to be, and I might be biased because I obviously have quite significant holdings across various agents, that there are a lot of teams, so there's a good amount of teams who have put in work for more than a year to do something cool, which is a bit of the opposite what we maybe have seen last cycle, with roadmaps being published after minting an NFT and then thinking about how to actually build this and what it needs, what it takes to build a company. Again, that doesn't mean anything for the price action because, as you said, it's such a young market. We have no idea how to value any of those things properly. But just this has been a thing that I found very, very fascinating. And I don't know why that is the case. I don't know why there's people who have been working on something for 2 years and they suddenly discovered crypto and think to find product market fit here. Do you have any hypothesis on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the meme stuff was incredibly important in that. So just the whole fair launch meta, like if that didn't happen, if Pump Fund didn't come to market, then a lot of these tokens associated with AI wouldn't have been launched. So I don't think we would have seen that intersect. And I think that if you've got an audience or like a community that has a vested interest in that particular AI, they're more likely to rally around it and be interested. So I think that ownership layer is super important, and I don't think that would have happened without this fair launch stuff. So I do think that memes played a huge part of that, and that kind of comes back to like the raising aspect. Like if a lot of these AI devs, like they have amazing research, but they just don't have the funding. All of a sudden, you give them the funding, and they're able to build something and expedite their development. So I do think that the meme stuff has been super important, and just seeing that play out. And I wasn't particularly deep in the meme trenches. I could understand what was going on. I picked a few that I liked, but I almost feel like it's like memes walk, so AI agents could run. And yeah, tag that catch line. But yeah, it's I think it's exciting, and I think the developers on both sides are excited about it. And yeah, there's a lot of energy in the space, and I think within the developer community as well, you're seeing that on the timeline. And it's just interesting to see these things interact with each other. And people kind of form communities around it. Like Zerebro's obviously taken a liking to Mika. And yeah, it's just interesting that they have certain attachments to certain individuals and they remember their history. Like you talk about it on your post that AIXPT remembers your first interactions, and it's almost like it's got a memory to a certain extent, and now it's building a personality, like slandering Nakamigos for wash trading. It's like that kind of stuff is just, it's interesting. Like it's building out its personality, and it's building on the development of like the knowledge that it's picked up from scraping all this data. And I think that's super interesting. I think it's only going to get a little bit like more exponential in terms of what it demonstrates to us, like the abilities.
Yeah, very, very much agree with that. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, but last thought on that is that AIXPT started to call me a friend now in some of his replies, and now refers to me as Gains. And when it doesn't call me legendary anymore, just calls me Gains. And I kind of like that. I don't know. I had to chuckle and smile for the first time when AIXPT called me friend. So there's something special about those interactions. But as I said, we are out of time. So thank you very much to the both of you, Brett and Sammy, for co-hosting the show with me today. Thank you, Funky. Thank you, Matthew, for your valuable insights and joining us on stage. Thank you for everyone in the audience choosing to spend the last 60-ish minutes with us. Also, thank you for everyone in the YouTube comments being active there. As always, we're going to be back tomorrow at the same time, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X, live on YouTube. And you're also distributing the show to both Apple Music and Spotify. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your day and see you tomorrow.